Some toys are meant to comfort us, to be our companions in childhood, our silent confidants. But what happens when something else decides to whisper back? Tonight, I'm sharing 3 real accounts from people who discovered that their childhood toys held something far more sinister than stuffing and plastic. These are stories of possession, of objects that shouldn't move, shouldn't speak, and definitely shouldn't remember. If you've ever felt watched by something in your room at night, you'll understand why these 3 people can never look at toys the same way again.
My grandmother gave me a music box when I turned 7. It was beautiful, an antique thing with a delicate porcelain ballerina that would spin when you wound the key. The melody it played was hauntingly sweet, something classical I never learned the name of. Grammy told me it had been in our family for generations, passed down from mother to daughter. She died 3 months later. I kept the music box on my nightstand, but I never wound it after the funeral. It felt wrong somehow, like playing it would disturb her rest. But here's the thing that still makes my skin crawl, even 21 years later. It started playing on its own. The first time I convinced myself I'd accidentally bumped it. Maybe the mechanism was loose. It was old after all. But then it happened again, and again, always at exactly 3:17 in the morning. I know because I started waking up to it, that tinkling melody cutting through the silence like a knife, and the ballerina would be spinning, her painted smile seeming wider in the darkness, her tiny porcelain hands reaching out as she twirled. I told my parents, but they dismissed it. Old music boxes do that, they said. Something about the springs unwinding slowly over time. Except this box hadn't been wound in months. The key sat untouched, gathering dust. There was nothing to unwind. One night, I decided to test it. I took the key and hid it in my sock drawer, buried under layers of clothing. If the box couldn't be wound, it couldn't play, right? That night, I lay in bed watching the red numbers on my alarm clock. 3:15, 3:16, 3:17. The music started. But this time, it was different. The melody was backwards, a discordant reverse lullaby that made my teeth ache. And I swear to you, I saw the ballerina turn her head, not her body, just her head, rotating on her porcelain neck with a grinding sound like bone on bone. She was looking directly at me. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. I just lay there, frozen as that backwards music played and the ballerina stared with her dead painted eyes. Then I heard it, a whisper, thin and reedy like wind through a crack. Sarah. My name. The music box knew my name. I tried to ignore it. Night after night the box would play, and night after night I'd hear my name whispered in that ancient papery voice. But then the messages changed. It started telling me things, secrets, things I'd never told anyone, about the boy I had a crush on, about the test I'd cheated on, about the horrible thoughts I sometimes had about my younger brother. How could it know? How could a music box know my deepest, darkest secrets? Then came the night it told me something I didn't know, something I couldn't have known. Your grandmother didn't fall, it whispered. She was pushed. I felt my blood turn to ice. Grammy had died from a fall down her basement stairs. An accident, everyone said. She was old, her balance wasn't good, but the music box was saying something different. Who? I whispered back, and I still can't believe I had the courage to ask. Who pushed her? The ballerina spun faster, the backwards music rising to a fever pitch, and then, in a voice that wasn't a whisper anymore, but a shriek that I felt in my bones, "You will!" I threw the music box across the room. It shattered against the wall, porcelain shards exploding like shrapnel. The ballerina's head rolled under my bed, and even broken, I could swear I heard it laughing. My parents were furious about the mess, but I didn't care. I thought it was over. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. 10 years later, my mother gave me a box of Grammy's things she'd been keeping in storage, and there, wrapped in tissue paper, was the music box, completely intact, not a crack, not a chip. The ballerina smiled up at me, her head firmly attached, her arms in perfect position. I burned it that same day, but sometimes at exactly 3:17 in the morning, I still hear that melody, and I wonder if maybe the music box was right. Maybe I am going to push someone down the stairs. Maybe it was never a warning. Maybe it was a promise.
I found Whispers at a garage sale when I was 9 years old. He was sitting on a card table with a bunch of other old toys, his button eyes looking right at me. The lady running the sale seemed almost relieved when I showed interest. She practically gave him to me for free, just a quarter. My mom tried to talk me out of it, said he looked moth-eaten and dirty, but I insisted. There was something about him that drew me in. I named him Whispers because of the sound his old stuffing made when you squeezed him, like dried leaves rustling in wind. He became my constant companion. I took him everywhere. I told him everything. He was the best friend I never had in real life. But Whispers had a way of knowing things he shouldn't know. It started small. I'd mention wanting something at breakfast, and by dinner, my parents would surprise me with it. They'd say it was just coincidence, that they'd been planning it anyway, but it kept happening. I told Whispers I was scared of the dark, and the next day, my dad installed a nightlight without me asking. I told Whispers I wished my teacher would get sick so we wouldn't have a spelling test, and she called in absent the next morning. I thought I was lucky. I thought Whispers was my good luck charm. I didn't realize the price I was paying. The nightmares started about 3 months after I got him. Vivid, horrible dreams where I was trapped in darkness, unable to move or speak while something fed on me. I'd wake up exhausted, with strange marks on my skin, little bruises shaped like fingerprints. My parents took me to doctors, but no one could explain it. Whispers sat on my shelf, watching with those black button eyes. One night, I woke up during one of the nightmares, except I realized I wasn't asleep. I was paralyzed in my bed, conscious but unable to move, and I could feel something pressing down on my chest. The weight was immense, crushing, and when I managed to move my eyes to the side, I saw him. Whispers was standing on my nightstand, not sitting, standing. His stubby arms were extended toward me, and his mouth, which had always been just a stitched line, was open, not torn open, but open like a mouth should be, with darkness inside that seemed to go on forever. And he was whispering. Not words, not really. It was more like he was inhaling, drawing something out of me with each breath. I could feel it leaving, whatever it was, something essential, something I needed. When I could finally move again, Whispers was back on the shelf in his normal position, just a stuffed bear with a sewn smile. But I was different, weaker, hollowed out. This happened night after night. I'd wake up paralyzed, Whispers would be feeding, and I'd be left more and more depleted. I tried to tell my parents, but I couldn't find the words. How do you explain that your teddy bear is eating your soul? Because that's what it felt like he was consuming me piece by piece. I decided to get rid of him. I threw him in the outside trash bin, made sure the lid was closed tight, but the next morning, Whispers was back on my shelf. I tried burning him in the backyard fire pit, but the flames wouldn't touch him. The fire burned around him, and he just sat there in the embers, unharmed. That's when I realized the truth. Whispers wasn't just some haunted toy. He was a trap, a vessel for something that fed on children, on their energy, their innocence, their very essence. And I had invited him in. I had chosen him. The feeding got worse. I lost weight. My grades dropped. I stopped caring about anything. My parents were terrified, dragging me to specialist after specialist. No one could find anything wrong, but I was wasting away. Then one night, Whispers spoke. Not in my dreams or in whispers, but in a clear human voice. "Thank you, Marcus. You're almost ready," he said. "Ready for what?" I managed to croak. "To become like me, a vessel. Then we'll find the next child together." I understood then. This was a cycle. Whispers had been a child once, consumed by the thing that now wore his form, and I was about to become the same, a trap for the next victim. I did the only thing I could think of. I ran to my parents' room and told them everything, every impossible detail, and for once they listened. My father was a religious man, and he called our priest. Father Michael came that same night. What happened during that exorcism, I can't fully remember. The priest said I shouldn't try, but I know whispers fought. I know the room got cold enough to see our breath. I know I heard voices, dozens of them, all screaming from inside that teddy bear. All the children who'd been consumed before me. When it was over, Whispers was just stuffing and fabric. The priest burned him, and this time the fire took him. But Father Michael warned me that the thing inside wasn't destroyed, just displaced. It would find a new vessel eventually, another toy, another trap. I'm 35 now. I have a daughter of my own, and I watch her toys very, very carefully, because I know what's out there, in garage sales and thrift stores and antique shops, waiting for a child to choose it, waiting to whisper secrets and make wishes come true, all while slowly devouring them from the inside out. If your child has a favorite toy that seems a little too knowing, a little too aware, get rid of it. Don't wait. Don't question it. Just burn it and pray the fire takes it. Because some toys don't want to play. They want to feed.
I never believed in possessed objects until I inherited my great-uncle's house. He was a puppeteer in his younger days, performing in theaters across Europe before settling in America. When he died, I was the only family he had left, so everything became mine, including what was in the attic. The Marionette was magnificent in a grotesque sort of way, nearly 3 feet tall, carved from dark wood with articulated joints and glass eyes that caught the light in unsettling ways. It was dressed in a miniature Victorian suit, complete with a tiny top hat. The strings were still attached to the control bar, perfectly maintained despite decades of storage. There was a note attached to it, in my great-uncle's shaky handwriting. Never perform with this one. Never. I made a terrible mistake. Keep it sealed. But the thing was, it wasn't sealed. It was just sitting there on a trunk, as if waiting, and I, stupidly curious, picked up the control bar. The moment my fingers touched it, the marionette's head turned. Not because I'd moved the strings. The head just turned on its own until those glass eyes were looking directly at me. I should have dropped it right then, should have run, but I was frozen, staring into those eyes, and I felt something looking back, something ancient and patient and hungry. I heard its voice in my head, not in my ears, a voice like silk and smoke. Finally, it said, a new puppeteer. I dropped the control bar and stumbled backward, heart hammering. The marionette collapsed into a normal heap of wood and strings, just a puppet. But I knew what I'd felt, what I'd heard. I should have burned it, should have destroyed it right then. But there was a part of me, a part I'm ashamed to admit existed, that was curious. My great-uncle had been famous once, a master puppeteer. If this puppet was special, if it had power, maybe it could teach me something. That night, I dreamed I was on stage. Spotlights, velvet curtains, an audience of shadowy figures, and I was performing, controlling the marionette with expert precision. The puppet danced and bowed and gestured, and the audience applauded. In the dream, I felt talented, worthy, seen. When I woke, my hands ached. I looked down and saw thin red marks across my fingers and palms, like I'd been gripping strings all night. The dreams continued. Every night I'd be on stage, performing, and every morning I'd wake with new marks, new pains. My hands started to move on their own during the day, fingers twitching in patterns I didn't control, puppeteering patterns. I tried to ignore it, tried to stay out of the attic, but the pull was too strong. 1 week after touching the control bar, I went back up. The marionette was in a different position. I knew I'd left it collapsed on the floor, but now it was sitting upright on the trunk, legs dangling over the edge, waiting. I picked up the control bar, and this time I knew what I was doing. My hands moved with expert skill I'd never possessed. The marionette stood, bowed, began to dance, and I realized with growing horror that I could feel it, not the wood and strings, but something inside it, a presence, a consciousness. We're going to be wonderful together, you and I. We'll perform such beautiful shows. I don't want this, I said aloud. But you do, it countered. I can feel your loneliness, your desire to matter, to be special. I can give you that. I can make you the greatest puppeteer who ever lived. And the terrible thing was, it was tempting. In my real life, I was nobody, divorced, working a job I hated, no real friends or family. But when I held those strings, I was transformed. I was an artist, a performer, someone important. I started practicing every day, hours in the attic, manipulating the marionette through intricate routines, and it was teaching me, showing me techniques that no human puppeteer could master. The puppet moved with impossible fluidity, as if it were alive, or something inside it was. My great-uncle's journals were in the attic too. I found them one day and started reading. The truth was there, written in increasingly frantic handwriting. The marionette had been created by a master craftsman in Prague over 200 years ago. But during its creation, something had happened, a ritual gone wrong, a spirit bound into the wood. The thing inside wasn't human, had never been human. It was something else, something that fed on performers, on artists, consuming their talent and their lives in exchange for temporary greatness. Every puppeteer who'd used it had met the same fate. They'd perform brilliantly for a time, then waste away, their essence drained into the marionette. My great-uncle had survived only because he'd stopped performing with it, but the puppet had been waiting, patient and eternal, for the next victim. I was that victim. By the time I understood, it was too late. I couldn't stop. Even when I tried to stay away from the attic, I'd find myself walking up the stairs in a daze. My hands would find the control bar, the marionette would dance, and I'd feel more of myself draining away with each performance. The marks on my hands became permanent, scars that looked like strings cutting into my flesh. I lost weight, lost color. My reflection in the mirror started to look wooden, my movements stiff and jerky. I was becoming like the puppet, hollow, controlled. One night, I looked down during a performance and realized the strings had reversed. They ran from my fingers to the control bar, yes, but they also ran from the control bar back to me, to my wrists, my elbows, my shoulders. I wasn't controlling the marionette anymore. It was controlling me. "We're almost ready," it whispered. "Soon you'll join me inside, and we'll wait together for the next puppeteer. Won't that be wonderful? You'll never be alone again." I understood my great-uncle's warning then. I understood why he'd never destroyed it, because you can't. The thing inside won't let you. It has power, subtle and insidious, to keep itself safe, to keep the cycle going. But he'd been strong enough to stop performing, and so was I. I took the marionette and its control bar and sealed them in a metal box, then another box, then another. 7 boxes, each one locked and blessed by a priest who asked no questions. I buried the boxes in my backyard under 6 feet of concrete. I can still hear it sometimes when the night is very quiet, a faint whisper from underground, promising me greatness, promising me I'll matter, promising me I'll never be forgotten. My hands still move on their own sometimes, puppeteering motions, muscle memory that isn't mine, and I dream of stages and spotlights and applause that never ends. The house is for sale now. I'm moving far away, but I wonder about the next owner, if they'll dig up the yard for a garden or a pool, if they'll find the boxes, if they'll be curious enough to open them. If they do,
I hope they're stronger than I was. I hope they read the warning I left inside the first box. I hope they have the strength to walk away. Because the marionette is still waiting, still patient, still hungry, and it has so many secrets to whisper to its next puppeteer.
3 toys. 3 people whose lives were forever changed by objects that should have been harmless. Sarah still listens for backwards music in the dead of night. Marcus watches his daughter's toys with endless vigilance. And Elena lives in fear of the day someone unearths what she buried. The common thread in all these stories? The toys knew secrets. They whispered truths no inanimate object should know. They made promises and extracted prices. And they're still out there, in one form or another, waiting for the next person to pick them up, to wind them up, to hold their strings. So tonight, before you sleep, take a look at the toys around you. The childhood treasures, the antiques, the gifts from relatives long gone. Look into their eyes if they have them. Listen for their whispers if you dare. Because some toys don't want to play. Some toys want something far more precious than your time. They want your secrets, your essence, your very soul. Sweet dreams.